Primary school teachers of Reddit, what is the most shocking display of psychopath-like behavior you've seen? Oh dear, where to begin? Here's one that comes to mind. Kindergarten girl had a pair of scissors. I turned just in time to see her reach over and try to cut off another girl's ponytail. Not a major thing, because no cutting actually happened, but when I asked her why she was going to do that, because they normally got along very well, she said, in a simple, very straightforward tone of voice, because her hair is what she loves the most. Sent chills up my spine. My wife is a teacher. About 10 years ago, a student took apart a pencil sharpener and removed the razor blade, cut a groove in the back of a pencil, slid the razor into it, used rubber bands to secure it, and tried to slice her with it. This was a school, not some super maximum prison, right? First grade boy, about 7 years old, ginger, chubby, pretty cute little dude, sitting fairly quietly at his desk. I look closer, and he is slowly pressing the point of his pencil into the top of his hand, then lifting it to see the indentation it has made in his skin. He does this a number of times, pressing a little harder each time. Then he looks over at the kid next to him, who is quietly writing in his workbook, one hand flat on the table in front of him, and bang. He stabs his pencil into the top of the other kid's hand. Cue instant screaming from the poor little guy, who all of a sudden has a pencil solidly standing up in his skin, and little ginger guy is just sitting there looking slightly baffled at the crying, but entirely pleased as punch. My pregnant sister-in-law works with a child who is pretty crazy. He doesn't take his meds some days, and he will often draw pictures of killing things and blood everywhere. Sometimes he'll tell the teachers, "This is you, and there is blood everywhere." Ha ha ha. The other day she was helping him, and he was frustrated, so he stabbed her with a pencil. And then right after that went to hit her stomach, and she deflected the hit and said, "You can't hit. Especially my stomach. Do you know why?" And the freaking kid goes, "Yeah, 'cause you have a baby in there. I hope it dies." This kid is in first grade. Went to school with a kid who enjoyed mumbling crazy things to himself all during class and in the hallways. Always felt bad for the guy and did my best to be nice to him. He regularly got caught writing hit lists and threatening to kill girls because none of them loved him. Surprisingly, it looks like he's doing a lot better now. A grade 1 student said he had killed 2 bunnies and some birds. He wrote about it in his journal and drew a picture. Sure enough, the carcasses were found in the playground at recess. When we asked him why he did it, he said he wanted to know what it would feel like to kill something. I think the really remarkable thing about this is that a 5 to 6-year-old was able to catch multiple rabbits and birds. That takes some coordination. My wife is a substitute teacher. I dropped her off to teach 2nd grade class in a downtown elementary school. These kids were the angriest students she ever met, and she used to teach in New York City. The moment class started, they beat the ever-living crap out of each other, to the point that there was clumps of hair on the ground. She was also 6 months pregnant, and one student ran into her belly, causing her to cry. She had called the office over and over and eventually said she wouldn't work in this class. They switched her to 1st grade. Woo, better, right? Nope, they were worse. She threatened to move the temperature down on the behavior thermometer if they continue, which she eventually followed through. This caused meltdown city. They actually threw a desk at her. 1st grade kid throwing a desk at a pregnant lady. When I picked her up, she burst into tears and was shaking. She said if she had driven there herself, she would have just left. I wish she would have called me. I would have left work to get her. Took that school off the sub-call list. Not a teacher. My girlfriend is a mental health case manager for kids, though. She just was assigned a 5-year-old girl who hasn't been diagnosed with anything yet. However, she has several people working with her because she has killed a few animals. Just cuts them in half while they're alive. I think so far, it's been a fish and 2 rabbits. I'm not sure whether this is your standard of psychopath, but once I saw a 5-year-old boy cycling round and around his mum on a tricycle. He was pointing and laughing at her. His mum was sitting in the middle of the floor, crying her eyes out and biting herself, which I later discovered was self-harming. Little shit for brains had wound his mum up to a point where she was crying and then taunted her for self-harming. I'm not a teacher myself, but my best friend works as a teaching assistant in a small primary school. She used to tell me about a little boy who would constantly give death stares to teachers and would generally refuse to interact with other children. My friend absolutely loves kids, but even she admitted she had never seen a child look so angry all of the time, like he hated the world, even though he was so young. He would face the wall during class time and repeatedly bash his head against the wall until staff intervened. He started biting a lot of the children and was told off for doing so in the dining hall one day. He then jabbed the dinner lady in the arm with his fork so hard that it drew blood. In my friend's classroom they had a small incubator with little chicks in that the children would help to look after and watch as they grew up. At one point he was left unattended and managed to squeeze one of the poor chicks to death. I don't know whatever happened with him because my friend got a job at another school, but the story has always stuck in my mind. The way she described him genuinely gave me chills. Not a teacher, but have been in childcare on and off for years, currently off. I worked the daycare at a gym in high school and there I met the two most psycho kids I've ever met before or since. Keep in mind that I was daycare director for a homeless mission at one point too. Lots of kids coming in with issues. But no, to spoiled rich kids at the gym were the worst. The first was Brad. Brad has a younger brother and sister, both dark-haired and petite, both very smart and kind. Brad was their opposite in every way. He was huge for his age, blonde, of average intelligence and pure evil. I had to pry him off of other kids all the time. His younger siblings were constantly covered in bruises because he would beat on them mercilessly. Several bite and bruise reports were written because of this kid. He drew awful pictures of blood and guts coming out of people, said evil things like, "One day I'll get big enough that no one can stop me from hurting people." Once, I left to use the restroom, leaving only 5 kids in the care of my assistant, and the moment I left Brad got another kid in a headlock and my assistant couldn't get him off. This is a 5 years old we're talking about. Full grown adult couldn't get him off this other kid. Staff started screaming for me, but before I could get my pants up, the other kid passed out from lack of air. Huge shit ensued of course. Parents were told they couldn't bring Brad back. I think his parents ended up having to send him to a boarding school for special needs kids because his violence was so out of hand that CPS was going to take the younger two away. Great. Parents really, but that kid had issues they just couldn't control. The other was one of 2 sisters. Jessica, the older, was the crazy one. Both girls attended the gym childcare, both absolute spoiled brats, but I didn't know the extent of Jessica's issues until I started babysitting them at home as well. They lived in a B-level, or split-level, house. The kind where the main living area is half a flight up from the front door, usually a bedroom, living room, and utility area is half a flight down with a sunken garage attached. Their house was just like this. These girls were so spoiled that, at 6 and 7, the bottom floor was entirely theirs. They had their own living room, bathroom, and bedroom, complete with leather furniture and the latest in big screen TVs. At some point, they had to move the younger one's bedroom into a curtained off corner of the living room because Jessica kept trying to smother her in her sleep. They had a dog, and the parents warned me to keep it outside or away from Jessica at all times. Why? They had already been through 2 cats, a few hamsters, and several fish, all of which Jessica killed in one way or another. She had been known to cut, beat, and burn the poor dog, but they wouldn't find it another home. Once, neither wanted to eat the disgusting looking casserole that their mom had left for dinner. No biggie, I made them sandwiches with veggies and fruit instead. This is the point that I should mention that Jessica was very obese for her age. After eating 2 adult-sized sandwiches and everything else, she wanted more food. I told her that she'd had plenty for the moment, maybe we'd have a snack in a little while and watch a movie. This sent her into an absolute rage, kicking, screaming, banging her head, the works. Bro, I sent her stomping off to her room downstairs. About a minute later, I'm at the sink with my back to the stairs, and I hear a squeak of floorboards. I turned around a split second before a golf driver, the old solid wood kind, smashed me in the back of the skull. This girl had gone downstairs, and in less than a minute, decided to get one of her dad's golf clubs out of the garage, sneak back upstairs, and brain me with it. the whole time laughing her head off about how no one would miss me when I died. I stopped watching them after that, but years later, when they would have been 11 and 10, I saw them at Target in the Halloween aisle and Jessica full on punched her mother in the face over a costume wig. The mom already had one black eye, and her younger sister just stood there silently immune to her sister's rages. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe.